If you thought clowns are scary, well, you haven't heard of old-time circuses. Back in the day, circuses were a bit different than what we know today. Sure, they still had clowns and acrobats, but they also put up people that the world had labeled as circus freaks. These weren't fake actors. They were real men and women born with conditions that made them look unlike anyone else. So, join us today as we count down 15 shocking circus freaks who actually existed. Number 15, Frances O'Connor. Frances was born in 1914 in Granite Falls without arms, a condition she never let define her limits. Known as the living Venus de Milo, she spent 2 decades performing in sideshows across the U.S. with the Ringling Brothers and the infamous Barnum and Bailey Circus. Audiences were stunned by her ability to do everyday tasks like sewing, eating, and writing gracefully with her feet. In 1932, she appeared in Todd Browning's cult classic Freaks, performing opposite another armless woman, Martha Morris. Though O'Connor was never comfortable with the exploitation tied to such films, her elegance and poise stood out. Off stage, she lived a quiet, independent life, retiring in California. She never married, stayed close with her family, and lived to 67. In 2024, her legacy was revisited in a 200-page biography written by Michael Dickhorst, published on what would have been her 110th birthday. O'Connor remains a rare figure, graceful, composed, and quietly powerful, even in a world that preferred the grotesque. Number 14, Big Winnie Johnson. Winnie was born into slavery in Henry County around 1839. Freed after the Emancipation Proclamation, she married Benjamin Johnson and raised several children. After his death in 1882, Winnie turned to the only career that could support her family, a sideshow stage. She was billed as Big Winnie, often advertised at 620 to 850 pounds, and quickly became one of the highest-paid fat ladies in America. She toured major cities like Chicago, Cincinnati, and Detroit, earning up to $250 a week, an enormous sum for a black performer in the 1880s. Crowds lined up to see her at dime museums and circuses across the Midwest. Despite only performing for 6 years, she became a national figure, praised for her presence and humor. In 1888, she died in Baltimore of heart failure before another scheduled show. Her coffin required 20 pallbearers and a derrick. Newspapers called her as great an attraction in death as in life. Number 13, Henry Behrens. Henry, better known as Colonel Pee-wee, was once billed as the smallest man in the world. Born around 1895, possibly in Brazil to German parents, he stood at just 30 inches tall. Behrens traveled extensively across the globe, performing in circuses, sideshows, and exhibitions, often promoted as a living curiosity. Though small in stature, he lived a remarkably full life. He spoke 4 languages fluently and was known for his charming presence and sense of humor. In 1932, he married Emmy, a fellow performer from Leeds who stood at 40 inches tall. The couple settled in Worthing, West Sussex, and continued touring together for years. Despite the often exploitative world of sideshows, Behrens seemed to find both love and community within it. He passed away in 1961 at the age of 66. His legacy lives on in photos and stories, one of the last of a now vanished era when human difference was both stage act and survival. Number 12, Darwin's Missing Link. Crow was marketed as Darwin's Missing Link, supposedly bridging the gap between ape and human. Posters described her with food pouch cheeks, a soft tail, and skin entirely covered in hair. At only 7 years old, she debuted in 1883 at London's Westminster Aquarium. Before she died in 1926, she toured with both Barnum and the Ringling Brothers. The Aquarium, known for mixing sideshow acts with scandal, exploited her as both exotic and forbidden. Scientists' claims about her supposed missing link origins were pure invention, yet the public devoured every lie. In 1883, she was exhibited at Trinity College, where doctors were asked to confirm her ancestry. But Crow wasn't primitive, far from it. By her teenage years, she spoke 5 languages, read fluently, and played piano. Though promoted as a half-ape curiosity, she was an educated, multilingual lady who mastered the role forced upon her and turned myth into her livelihood. Number 11. Anna Haining Bates. Anna was born in 1846 and quickly outgrew every crib and expectation. By age 4, she stood 4 feet 6. By her 15th birthday, she reached 7 feet. Eventually, she topped out at an astounding 7 feet 11 inches, making her one of the tallest women in recorded history. She was intelligent, artistic, and could play piano with ease. At 17, she joined Barnum's American Museum, narrowly escaping death when the building burned down in 1865. Later, she met Martin Van Buren Bates, the Kentucky giant, and the two married in London in 1871. Queen Victoria even gifted them wedding jewelry. Their children were unusually large. One son, born at 22 pounds, remains the heaviest newborn ever recorded. The couple eventually settled in Seville, Ohio, in a home built to their scale. Anna spent her final years on their farm, passing away quietly in 1888, just one day before her 42nd birthday. In fact, no medical cause for her height was ever confirmed. Number 10. Emmett Bajano. Emmett, known to audiences as the alligator-skinned man, was born in Florida with ichthyosis, which is a very rare condition that left his body coated in thick, scaly skin. Only his face and hands stayed smooth, giving him a striking and eerie appearance. He eventually joined the sideshow circuit, where he met Priscilla, the famed monkey girl, performing under the Lawther banner. Their bond was instant, and they married in 1938. Together, they built both a marriage and a career that fascinated audiences for decades. They had a daughter who tragically died of pneumonia shortly after birth, and later adopted a son named Tony. Billed as the world's strangest married couple, they toured widely and became beloved circus icons. Their duo lasted 57 years, until Emmett's death on May 14, 1995. Priscilla passed 6 years later. Adopted by Johnny Bajano after losing his father, Emmett turned hardship into art. Together, he and Priscilla embodied endurance, love, and strength through spectacle. All right, now, let's move to number 9. Jeannie Tomaini. Bernice Jeannie was born in 1916 with sacral agenesis that left her without legs. Standing just 2 feet 5 inches tall, she began performing at the age of 3, introduced to audiences as the half-girl. Despite the billing, Jeannie had a warm, confident spirit and a remarkable ability to charm her crowds. She met her husband, Al Tomaini, known as the world's tallest man, at 7 feet 4 inches, when they were both touring. Together, they became famous as the world's strangest married couple, performing acrobatic and comedic acts across the U.S. for decades. After retiring, they settled in Gibsonton, Florida, a town built by and for circus performers. Jeannie later appeared in documentaries and TV specials, including The Secret Cabaret and Sideshow, Alive on the Inside, where she reflected proudly on her life under the lights. She died in 1999 at 82, remembered for her grace, humor, and her deep love for Al and their adopted daughters. Number 8. Jane Barnell. Jane was born in 1879 in Wilmington. By age 2, she was already growing a beard. Her mother, believing her cursed, sold her at 4 to a traveling circus while her father was away. Jane was taken to Europe, fell ill with typhoid in Berlin, and was eventually located by her father, who brought her home. She spent her teens trying to hide her beard, working briefly as a student nurse, before finally embracing sideshow life. She was known as Lady Olga Roderick, the bearded lady, working with John Robinson's Circus, Ringling Brothers, and Hubert's Museum. For decades, she traveled the U.S. as one of the most recognizable acts of her time. She later appeared in Todd Browning's Freaks, a role she disliked for how it portrayed sideshow performers. Jane married 4 times, survived heartbreak, and lived most of her life with a quiet dignity. She died in 1945 in New York City, her story mostly preserved through rare interviews. Number 7. Frank Richards. Frank Cannonball. Richards built a career out of being hit in the stomach. Born in 1887 in Kansas, he served in World War I before joining the vaudeville circuit. His act began with ordinary punches, but soon escalated. Boxers like Jack Dempsey struck him dozens of times, and audiences gasped as he took blows from sledgehammers and battering rams. Eventually, he perfected his signature stunt, being shot in the gut with a 104-pound cannonball fired from a compressed air cannon. It was so dangerous he only performed it twice a day. The stunt made him a sensation in carnivals and newsreels. Off-stage, Richards lived in Long Beach, where he was known as a churchgoer and veteran who gave free shows for servicemen during World War II. He befriended boxing legends like Jack Johnson and Joe Louis, who admired his toughness. He died in 1969 at 81, his cannonball act immortalized in film clips, documentaries, and pop culture references. Number 6. Henry Johnson. Henry lived an astonishing life that spanned over a century of circus history. Born in Norwich on Christmas Day, 1806, he was orphaned as a child and grew up in poverty. Fascinated by traveling gymnasts, he trained himself on the streets until he joined Sanger's Circus as a teenager, later performing with Hughes's circus across Europe and China. By his 20s, he was performing before the Daoguang Emperor and King William IV, even earning royal payment and a license to perform across Britain. For 70 years, he toured as an acrobat, tightrope walker, and equestrian gymnast before retiring in Grantham with his wife, Mary Ann. Known for his agility and humor, Johnson also worked alongside the famous juggler Mulaba, the Chinese juggler. Well into his 90s, he still walked miles a day and performed small tricks for local children. He died in 1910, celebrated as one of England's oldest and most enduring circus freaks. Number 5. Josephine Clofulia. Born in Switzerland in 1827, Josephine Clofulia developed hypertrichosis, a condition causing excessive hair growth. By age 8, she already had a 2-inch beard. When Barnum hired her, he altered her surname to Clofulia, stirring debate over whether she was truly a woman or a disguised man. When curiosity cooled, Barnum engineered controversy, hiring William Charr to sue him for fraud in 1853. The case went to court, where Josephine's father, husband, and 3 physicians testified she was biologically female. The trial made headlines, boosting ticket sales overnight. Crowds flooded Barnum's American Museum to see the woman at the center of it all. For Barnum, scandal was marketing, and Josephine became the face of his manipulation of truth. Yet behind the stunts stood a talented and beautiful woman who handled fame with grace. Her beard brought her public attention, her composure brought her respect. Even in deception, Josephine remained undeniably human, both spectacle and self. Number 4. Peter Robinson. Peter was born in 1873 in Chicopee and grew up with a normal frame until his teens, when he began losing weight rapidly. Eventually weighing just 58 pounds, he joined the circus circuit as the living skeleton. His skeletal frame and sharp wit made him a crowd favorite in Coney Island and with the Ringling Brothers shows. He was also billed as the cigarette fiend, often appearing with a cigarette dangling from his lips, playing up his eerie, humorous charm. In 1916, he married fellow performer Baby Bunny Smith, a 467-pound fat lady, and together they became one of the most famous sideshow couples in history, often renewing their vows for publicity. Peter even appeared in Todd Browning's 1932 film Freaks, alongside other real-life performers. Away from the spotlight, he was an accomplished harmonica player and kind showman. Though little is known about his later life, his legacy endures as a true icon of the sideshow era. Number 3. Mechanical men. One quick way to draw crowds in the early 1900s was by faking technology. One act, simply called No Name, featured a supposed mechanical man. Dressed like a well-mannered gentleman, he stood rigid as wires ran from his body, mimicking robotic motion. A woman, likely operating the controls, joined him on stage while he moved with jerky precision, face frozen and eyes blank. The manager offered $100 to any woman who could make him smile. As part of a publicity stunt, Mr. No Name appeared on the steps of the U.S. Treasury during a war-saving stamp event. Mid-performance, it suddenly toppled down the stairs, stood back up, and kept moving, unharmed. The crowd gasped. Was he real or was he a machine? No one could tell. Whether it was clever engineering or a perfect act, the mystery worked. The illusion of artificial life sold tickets long before anyone truly understood what mechanical could actually mean. Number 2. Cielo the Seal Boy. Stanislaus Barent's arms never grew the way most do. His hands sprouted directly from his shoulders, giving him the look of a seal. The world came to know him as Cielo, one of Coney Island's most beloved sideshow performers. Before the stage, he sold newspapers around Pittsburgh until a scout spotted him and offered a way to turn survival into a living. From the 1920s through the 1970s, Cielo amazed crowds by shaving, sculpting animals from clay, and even sawing a crate apart, all using those shoulder-mounted hands. His act often included a chimpanzee named Toby, and though his legs were weak, his determination wasn't. Between shows, he sold pitch cards, preferred hotels to tents, and spent nights drinking and playing cards. After retiring to the Showman's Retirement Village in Florida, he returned home when his health declined. He died in 1980, remembered not for what he lacked, but for what he dared to do anyway. Number 1. The Wild Men of Borneo. Barnum's fascination with dwarf performers never faded, but this time he added deception. He recruited brothers Hiram and Barney Davis, who each weighed just 45 pounds, but could astonishingly lift up to 300. Their main draw was simple: hoisting audience members as if they were nothing. Barnum renamed them Wayno and Plutonor and branded them as the Wild Men of Borneo. He spun tales that they'd been captured from the jungles, where supposedly all people looked like them. Audiences believed it without question. At Barnum's New American Museum, their act earned over $200,000. a fortune for the 1800s. As they grew older, both lost their eyesight but lived comfortably into their 90s. Even after their deaths, the lie stuck. Newspapers reported the passing of Plutonor, wild man of Borneo, as if the myth had been true all along. They'd been performers, not primitives, but Barnum's fantasy proved stronger than fact. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.